issue with sitting all day,
I
isn't there?
stand.
I mean, look where we
Steve
are.
wants to stand.
Okay, let's stand. I have a nervous group here, as you can see. Well, it's great
I'm
to
a
be
leaner.
They're a lot of fun, too, behind the curtain. Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here and moderate this panel. We have a lot of fantastic CEOs on stage, and they're going to share their wisdom and garner their experience with us today. But let's just give a big round of applause for the Ohio Business Roundtable. This has been just a phenomenal.
Where's Pat?
And this panel is going to be all about innovation, and in particular, the strategy around it. How do you make decisions, the risks, and how you evaluate those risks, and how you kind of bring it home. And so we're going to start off with a big question, kind of a broader question, but with all the dynamism and change going on, especially in Ohio, how do you as CEOs actually see opportunities, and how do you deal with those issues and concerns that arise all around the innovation space?
I copied Chris. No, we have a lot, obviously there's a lot going on in our space. There has been for a number of years, like 10,000 fintech companies that have had venture investment in over the years. We've got some very large competitors. We've got non-bank competitors. So there's a lot that's coming at us that's driving or causing change, not the least of which is then the technology side of it. And thank God we don't yet have some of the advances like what Tom's dealing with, but that's coming at some point. We have, as a consequence, had to adapt, and we're doing that in a variety of ways, including partnerships. We have investments in a variety of early stage venture capital companies who screen early stage companies for us. So we've got a half dozen of those, and they filter for us. And then there's our large partners. IBM would be an example of one that also help us as we move forward. We use outside resources. Accenture's here, McKinsey, of course. John's been great. John Warner's team is great, and a host of others, all channeling ideas.
Great. Doug, what do you think about pressures as CEO and all the opportunities available for innovation?
Yeah, I kind of think of it more as opportunity than pressure, or as a CEO, it's just all pressure or all opportunity. But nonetheless, our business is people, our business is talent, our business is helping people get into the industry, and it's helping the industry get access to people. And quite frankly, there's 1,000 different ways to slice that, and everybody's an expert, and everybody has good ideas. So we try to be market-led, and that means companies such as yours, where we're hearing from people saying, hey, I like what you're doing, we really want to support it, could you do it in this way? Or we have these resources, or are you aware of this relationship? And it really is a sprint every day, and it's kind of scary of doing that. But at the same time, we're a smaller organization. We really do have to run after every opportunity. So the pressure that I really feel, or what really makes me nervous, is failing to capitalize on an opportunity, because really small ideas can lead to big market opportunities for us, and we just don't know which ones are going to bloom. And so really it's those conversations with others in the industry that lead us to say, this may be a fantastic thing, we really have to grab it. But capacity is an issue for us, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Great. Stephen, how about at Ohio Health?
Innovation is key to healthcare. It has been for years and years. I mean, Dr. Mihaljevic talked earlier today. Today in medicine, you can resect a tumor, you can tissue type the tumor, you can look at the DNA architecture of the tumor and find a therapy directed right at that, that's as cutting edge as it gets. Years ago, 40, 50 years ago, when cataract surgery first came to be, you'd have a cataract removed, and then you'd spend 3 weeks in bed on your back with sandbags next to your head so that you wouldn't disrupt the cataract, the lens replacement. Now it's 15 minutes in a doctor's office and you go home. So innovation is really key to healthcare. But at our team, we talk about innovation with a capital I, innovation with a little I. So those big things like how do we DNA tissue type a tumor? That's big I. How do we advance to robotics? That's big I. And then you've got a little I. Which is things, how do we improve throughput in a hospital? How do we have better handoffs we're talking more and more, and it's probably in between big I and little I, the consumer. Healthcare is not always known as being the most consumer-friendly, whether you're in the ER, whether you're trying to understand your bill, trying to coordinate care between your primary care doctor, a specialist, a hospital, and we've got to be innovative and create ways to do that. But I think sometimes when we talk about innovation, there's an automatic gravitation to think about expensive technology and big processes. I'll tell you a quick story. One of our practices on their own, being creative, they put a 69-cent tool in place where a patient, if a woman came in and she was being trafficked, human trafficked, or she was being abused, she could activate this device and it would tell all the caregivers in a totally obscure, silent way, because sometimes the abuser or the trafficker is with them, that the patient was at risk. So somebody used that device about 2 weeks ago for the first time. And so the whole team was activated, and we got that person into a safe environment before they left the office. 69 cents. So, innovation can come in all forms. And so while there's tremendous pressure to be innovative, sometimes it's just being creative.
Great. And how about innovation, George, at Red Roof Inn?
Yeah, so innovation in the hotel industry is a little bit interesting and a little bit different. Everybody in this room is a consumer of hotels. Maybe not Red Roof's hotels, but everyone's a consumer of hotels. And so everyone's a critic. So our pressures, our challenges come from all of you. All of your guest reviews, all of your consumer complaints. Boy, this app worked for Marriott so well, but it doesn't work so well for Hilton. And so we are constantly, in a positive way, criticized in the hotel industry, and we're always trying to evolve what we're doing, not only outside in the lobby and different innovations in the lobby, but also in the guest room as well. And so it's very difficult to cater to everybody, but you have to continue to evolve as an organization and a business. And one of the things that we're looking at internally at Red Roof, because this is our 50th year in existence, and we've always been about clean, comfortable stay at a lower and affordable cost. So one of the things we're doubling down on from an innovation perspective is inside the room infotainment. So everybody nowadays has robust viewing and entertainment options. So how can we meet that need inside the room? So having that kind of tech stack in the room is exceptionally important, and it's innovative, most especially in the economy segment. So.
That's great. So we'll start with you, Doug, this time. So the question is, with everyone sort of jumping into the transformation and innovation space, and you as well, how do you actually assemble the team, your leadership team and your team that's going to run with these new big innovation strategies?
So my situation is going to be a bit different because we are so small at scale. We're a much smaller type of an organization, and we're early stage. And so we've got one team that has to do everything. And so it's really challenging. Right now, we have the opportunity to build a team that we know is going to have to be transformative later. But as of right now, we're trying to prepare for that future. We don't know what we're going to scale into, and so we're looking for superstars, we're looking for highly adaptable people, and we're looking to communicate those things, similar to what you do at an innovation stage, but we're trying to anticipate how this will work. And we're working in an industry, again, that of people, that we don't know what kind of changes might come. In terms of the technologies that we see in some other industries like ag tech or health sciences or manufacturing or law or several different kinds of things, you can kind of anticipate these are the technologies that will make those kinds of changes. But it's really difficult for us to know, not only year to year what kind of advances, but really month to month. We're experiencing rapid change, and we're really seeing in some companies that their people needs are changing quite rapidly. We're the type of organization that sort of fits within that. So rather being preparing for transformation of our industry or our company because something changed in the economy, we're trying to transform really month to month to take advantage of incoming opportunities that we really were not going to anticipate.
Great. Stephen, tell us about how you assemble the team.
Well, and the team, we've heard this several times already today, the people in the team are key. The place we always start is what's the problem we're trying to solve? Because it's really easy to get yourself distracted. You can go chasing shiny objects. If we stay focused on the problem, whether it's a transformational type issue or just a pebble in someone's shoe, then we've got a team of people that look for solution sets. We generally start internally. We've got a physician cadre and a clinical team that can provide us solutions that they see in talking to colleagues, because in healthcare there's a lot of networking. There's a lot of shared information because of our mission. Frankly, people tend to not necessarily they don't keep secrets when it comes to things that solve problems in healthcare. But, and then we've got a team that their whole job is just to evaluate those kinds of solutions, whether it be a technology, a company. Should we partner with someone? Should we bring in the technology? Should we buy a company that can solve the problem for us? And we evaluate those things, and we try to be nimble. That's one of the problems with legacy healthcare is that we're not known to be nimble. And everybody across the country is trying to change that. But you've got to have a disciplined process, but you've got to keep it moving to solve the patient's problems.
Great. George?
Yeah, for us, we have many different stakeholders in our business. First and foremost, we have our guests, of course, and innovation comes from our guests quite a bit, but we also have our franchisees. And so listening to our franchisees and understanding what's going on at the ground level of the business and how they're innovating and how we can scale that innovation through the entire system is imperative. You may all know this, but a franchisee invented the Big Mac. So the ideas are coming from all different places. So it's important when you're starting to think through an innovation process to talk to all stakeholders. In my world, it's the owners, the operators of the hotels, the guests, corporate high-ups, all the different stakeholders in your business. Listen to them, and then it's a great start for innovation and assembling the team.
Great. Steve?
The challenges we have are in a variety of different businesses because we've got a broad menu, and many banks our size have as well. So it depends on the issue as to how we approach it, but generally it's with an agile team approach, and the team efforts will draft resources out of different groups. So we've got, at any given time, we've probably got 100 or so agile teams operating around the company, and many of our support groups now have become agile in their organization structure. Because we have to get faster. Now we supplement those teams with outside resources, in some cases techno expertise, or some cases just additional capacity as well, and then we'll bring in unique skills even beyond that, for something like AI or really significant opportunities for us. And so that seems to work reasonably well, but we're always chasing the rapidity with which things need to get done and ultimately the speed of delivery.
Great. So we'll start with you, Stephen, on this one. You ready?
Sure.
With all this target-rich environment of all the innovations and technology you can consider, how do you structure or prioritize a list to even know where to start considering some of these approaches?
Well, you've got to have a process, and you've got to be disciplined, because you can waste a lot of time chasing things that don't pan out or they really aren't your priority. So as I said a second ago, what are the issues you're trying to solve? You've got to prioritize them. And then as you look at solutions, have a disciplined process that hopefully puts your customer and your associates or your employees at the center of trying to solve those things. We talk about, when we're looking at technology, when we're looking at innovation, we ask the question often, if we do it, what are the risks? If we don't do it, what are the risks? You try to keep a balanced approach to make sure that you're looking at it from every facet. And we use a balanced scorecard. When we're looking at how we advance projects, what is it going to do for quality? What's it going to do for service? What's the financial impact? What's the associate cultural impact? So you've got to create a process. You've got to stick to it, because there's always this inherent pressure to skip steps to get it. I mentioned it's great to be nimble, but if you skip steps in the process and end up with a bad outcome, you've really accomplished nothing. So be disciplined, have a process, and be transparent about it.
Great. George?
Well, everything for us centers around experience, whether it's guest experience, franchisee experience, owner experience. And so how does it all intersect? Can we add an amenity for a guest, but not not add too much of an operational headache to a franchisee. And so we are always looking at that balance. How can we give the best experience and value in the economy segment to our guests, but also to our franchisees? So balancing the stakeholders and juggling that is key to any start for any kind of innovation project.
Well, great.
We're probably all saying essentially the same thing. Our approach is ensuring we have strategic alignment, because there's always more that is being sought to be accomplished than we have the resources for. So the executive team has to keep that discipline. And that funneling takes a lot off the plate of things that would be nice to do but not essential. And then working it back through then with priorities, some of which are agreed upon, some of which are adjusted through the course of a year, generally puts us on track on a multi-year basis for what we want to accomplish.
Great. Doug?
And I have a traditional American business education, so there's just some business fundamentals that, we don't have a structure that's unique to our company, but we do have a size that allows us to ask pointed questions about numerous opportunities and have a full conversation about some of them. And so we're going to ask questions like, do we have the money? Is the capital there for this? Do we have to do this, or do we want to do this? Look out a year. We've done this. Can we sustain it? If it breaks, is there reputational risk? Is there, what happens competitively if we do these? These are kind of standard questions that you'd ask, but I'm fortunate that I don't have to ask these myself and try to maintain that discipline. Often the whole team wants to run forward towards something, but we can ask that question, can we sustain this? What would happen if all of our lines of business were doing this? Is that okay? Is that what we want? Actually, that's a little off, and it doesn't really match where we thought we said we'd be in a year, so maybe we should hold off on that, or that's an absolutely fantastic idea, but it'll keep. It'll keep a month. And sometimes just a cooling off period can be really helpful. It's kind of like that, being in the store wanting to buy something and say, well, I'll come back tomorrow if I still want it, and some of these opportunities just seem like such a market opportunity that we have to do them today, but we don't really have to do them, and we need to calm down a little bit. So I suppose that's the structure.
Great. And George, for the next question, innovation's full of risks, it's full of exposure. How do you manage or negotiate those risks when you take off and follow a path of innovation?
Yeah, so when you're starting to innovate and you're going down the path, most especially in implementation of new technology, there's only really 3 outputs, right? Good, fast, and cheap. And you only get 2 out of the 3, right? So if you want something good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. If you want something fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. So you have to balance those as to how it affects your business and your stakeholders and all the different elements of the business. And it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're looking for that quick fix, when you're looking for that quick technology fix, and then you have to balance how it fits in your technology stack too. That's a problem we see in hotels all the time. There's probably, I think at one point for a number of the brands, there was 35 different pieces of technology at the hotel. So think about that. And none of them were the same system. So you have to balance all of that.
Yeah. Steve?
There's obviously risk and integration, and you got to look at your tech stack and where do you want to go. So the constant push-pull with this. But Greg, if you don't mind, I told Pat I'd do a quick OBRT commercial.
Okay,
since
sure.
I've been around a long time. And I want to pick up on Frank's call to action that Pat delivered. I think it was 13 years ago, Governor Kasich asked a number of us to help get Jobs Ohio started, and I think 8 or 10 of us each gave $1 million. And that's what generated this boom in the Ohio economy. Now we've got the Ohio Grants Alliance, which Pat's going to talk about later today. That's an opportunity for us to come together as a state, not a set of cities, but as a state, and get after this massive funding that is out there. And the great job that Bob and JP and others have done with Jobs Ohio, it gives us an enormous set of resources to capture more than our fair share. So very excited by that. And then finally, in one of these early sessions with then Governor Kasich, as Governor DeWine and John mentioned as well, we had a session with Mark Kwame where we talked about starting Drive Capital. There was no venture capital in Ohio of size, and Mark started that. It was about to start a sovereign state fund, long-term sovereign fund that will help with resources support the great job that Bob and JP and Jobs Ohio does, but with private resources. So there's a lot for us to be involved with in addition to that call to action around the legislators and others that we heard earlier. And we as a group can make a huge impact on the future of Ohio working together. That's my commercial. Thanks, Pat.
Doug, negotiate risk.
Thinking and talking about risk, but also I appreciate you bringing up Mark Kwame. He is one of our investors, and we are an early stage company, and we are expected to have a different approach towards risk because of the returns that we're expected to bring at this stage of our company's life. And so I'm going to say that we're expected to make a lot of mistakes, and we're actually suspect if you're not making mistakes fast enough. You're not trying things. I haven't heard this from Mark or anything, but you have to move quickly. You have to break a lot of things, and you have to try things, and you have to learn very quickly, and you have to build very fast. And so, we have a relationship towards risk that is wanting to do a lot of those things, but we must not be foolish. No one has patience or tolerance for dumb mistakes, things you really should have known better about, and just kind of what are you doing? But at the same time, you're not going to get 50, 70% kind of returns and growth rates at triple and triple and triple again if you're not attacking markets, being extraordinarily innovative, partnering extremely aggressively. And so, we're in a very nice place to be with the kind of team that we have in the industry we're in, but we have a different relationship towards risk.
Great. Stephen?
Risk is something we take very seriously, and as I look at the name tags across the audience, we've heard already today about, energy security and what happens if we don't have it or it doesn't go right, transportation security, the airline industry. Healthcare is a lot like banking, that there's inherent risk in what we do because of technology, there's enterprise risk, there's data risk. One of the things that in our culture as a nation, people's personal health care and the threat of cyber is their healthcare record and cyber. When we think about innovation and you think about new partners and new tools, all of a sudden you start talking about exchanging information, exchanging data. In the global economy, we start talking about exchanging information across borders. And that is it's fraught with all kinds of issues and protections we have to think about. We're highly regulated, like many other folks in the room, and so you've got to think about compliance. You've got, and first and foremost, patient safety. So if we're going to move towards a new technology, how do we make sure that it's used appropriately? How do we make sure it's used safely? How do we make sure that the people that are using it are trained well and we're documenting that? So it's not just risk about does it achieve its outcome economically, or you've got to think about all those different facets, everything from compliance to organizational enterprise risk.
Yeah. Well, Steve, we're back to you. Steve? You're Steve. You have another commercial for us?
We were going to trade places. Go ahead.
Nice try.
So first
Sorry,
innovation, then implementation, and then you take off and you're going down the path of innovation and you may have to pivot and move forward. But how do you condition your company and your employees to really be the best and create that culture of excellence so you can succeed on the innovation front?
Well, you heard from everyone, I think, today who's talked about its talent. It's engaging. We use the term colleagues. It's engaging your colleagues. It's hearts and minds, and an understanding of why. So there's an ability to get to shared goals, and hopefully excitement about the launch as you described, and that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of communication. It's got to be consistent, and if we deliver that well, then we'll have buy-in, and we'll get support to do the things that we want to do. And if we fail, and I usually fail, but my team sort of doesn't, and so we get very highly engaged colleagues. So we measure ourselves against a variety of industries in terms of engagement and certain other key metrics. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're benching ourselves against. And I think that's the key to it. Technology is important, really important in our business, and it's changing rapidly. But fundamentally, we believe we're in a people business.
Great. Doug?
You know, when we use the word innovation or innovate, I think we tend to put our mindset into the opportunity side and saying, we're going to come up with an idea that's going to make us more profitable and it's going to fix problems and things like that. But I don't think we think so much about on the threat side that we're in trouble and we're going to have to make some changes quick to get ourselves out of this trouble. And I've been thinking about that a lot today as I've listened to people talk about the movement of people into and out of our industries, into and out of different skills and roles and things like that. We have a lot of brokenness in our ability to do things. We have a culture and a system in our country that involved, here's a standard, here are the steps to get to that standard, here's a new standard, here are those steps. And the innovation we're experiencing in industry does not match that way of moving people into where their talents are best used. And I was moved, and I'll just take a second to mention this about what Julie Sloat had mentioned about circling out and kind of moving people out of the organization because their skills don't match for the moment. We're losing good people, and so it has to be done, and she said that. You know, we're all experiencing that. We got to fix that, and I think we can. And I envision a time in which the innovation is we are now looking at our people who we've now put 15 years in on. We've trained them. We've gone to Christmas parties together. We don't want them to leave our company. We put too much into them. How can we reskill them? How can we, I hate to use the word recycle, but how can we continue so that we're not wasting so much? If this were a pipeline, and we use the term talent pipeline a lot, it would be an extremely wasteful pipeline. It would have to be shut down. There's just so much waste going on. And so I think a good deal of the innovation is not in our individual organizations, but it's how we act as a market, as an industry, and in some senses as a society.
Okay. Stephen?
When I think about the role of a senior leader in fostering innovation, you know, I think my team would say I'm probably not the most innovative guy in the world. And a lot of folks in healthcare, especially as you get towards the top, tend to have a little more gray hair. And we've been around for a while, and there can be hesitancy to try new things, or you may get into that mindset of, well, we tried that 20 years ago and it didn't work, and we're not going to do that again. So sometimes you have to look in the mirror and say, if the organization is not innovating at the rate that I would like it to, am I part of the problem? Put the mirror up there and say, do I need to? What I try to do with our team is say, well, let's be clear on the objective. Here's the bumpers. Here's the economic reality. Here's the compliance and the barriers that we need to, basically the bumpers we need to stay between, and then I need to get out of the way. Because there are people out there that are way junior to me that have great ideas. And sometimes you just need to let them, turn them loose and encourage them and let them know that as long as they're staying within the bumpers, and even if they stub their toe, you got their back. And that, it's all about safety. It's all about creating a creative environment where people feel that they can explore and they can be creative and they can try things and experiment, and that you're going to support them, even if it, doesn't go perfectly. Now, there's certain times when you're worried about, compliance, customers, patient safety, that you've got to, maybe the bumpers are a little narrower. But just sometimes we got to look in the mirror and get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
George?
I mean, it's about building a culture within your organization where people aren't afraid to come forward with ideas. And then they're also, once they bring those ideas forward, they're not afraid to fail. I think you said it, fail fast.
Yeah.
And I think Steve and I are probably the only millennials on the stage right now. But I mean, you got to think about the millennials out there and the Gen Zs that have every piece of information at their fingertips, something we never had. And so having that kind of information also leads and fosters ideas. So I think you have to sort of look at all levels of your organization, just as you were saying, and just really try to figure out where the best ideas are coming from and build a culture that fosters that.
Great. Okay, Doug, with all this new innovation and all these new companies and industries coming into Ohio, we heard about it today, the e-vehicles, the sustainability, we have the chip manufacturing coming from Intel. We have the quantum computing, and that's the most interesting to me. I'm a physicist, and I feel relevant again with this quantum computer coming to Ohio. But there's just all this fantastic stuff coming. And just interesting, how will that impact your business, especially in the near term?
Sure. I mean, there's not one of them that hasn't said people. There's not one. Each and every one of them are going to struggle with the ability to skill people, to hire people, to find people, and so that affects us. I do want to say that, one of our claim to fame, or how we got into this business as well, was trying to find those under-tapped sources of people. And in our country, we have that. It's an amazing resource. It's kind of like when we learned how to do fracking. And it's kind of like, there's gas here. And if we use this different technology, there's a huge amount. And we have people in Ohio, in all of these markets. We have people in Jeffersonville, and but they're not mobile. And so we have to change the mobility of things. So I would say an impact to our business is that not only do we want to be down in the ditch, sleeves rolled up, working on moving people around, but we want to be part of the larger movement and conversation with our competitors, with other forms of talent development and everything, whether it be college, community college, boot camps, K through 12, whoever. We want to be part of that conversation to help move the entire economy forward, and we'll do well in the process.
Great. Stephen?
I think there's a pro and a con for me and as a business leader. I think a lot of the things that are coming to Ohio and to the Columbus metro area where we're at, they're going to be force multipliers. They're going to help us deliver better care, faster care, the way patients want it, in a more inexpensive way. At the same time, there are things coming in the healthcare space that are trying to disrupt us. I mean, as a legacy healthcare organization, there are a lot of things happening around us. There's no one getting into the brick and mortar hospital business anymore. Everyone today goes into everything outside of the hospital because there's no capital, the capital costs aren't there. So you've got a lot of entities that are coming that are really trying to disrupt how care has historically been delivered. So we're going to have to figure out how to compete and partner with those folks across the entire continuum of care.
Right. George?
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing a little bit of what Doug said. It's about people. And I think the governor started today off quoting Woody Hayes, you win with people. That's going to be the biggest challenge for sure.
Great. You're going to close us out, Steve.
Well, I'm a complete apostle in terms of Ohio. And I can remember in 2009, we talked about as Rust Belt. You never hear that anymore. You look at what's happened in this state with the healthcare systems, the education groups, the clusters that are forming. Intel will create its own cluster. LG and Honda is a big deal. That's going to be a cluster for us. There are multiple other clusters that we either have or will be able to form, particularly if we're successful with the Ohio Grant Alliance efforts in building and leveraging federal dollars for the resources here. So I think this is, as the governor said, this is our time. And it floats all boats. We are a beneficiary indirectly because of the multiplier that Steve referenced in many things that will occur here. And then the more clusters we create, the more diversity of the economy, the stronger we're going to be. What Nancy did as a pioneer, was it 10 years ago, Nancy, or maybe a little bit more than that, with Apple, was remarkable. And it created a marketing capacity here in Ohio that many states would obviously envy. What Tom has, only one in the world. Only one in the world. I mean, we're going to have a lot of influx just looking at what's happening as a consequence of that. So I think we have this very unique moment together to drive aggressively and to invest. And even though it may not be a direct return, the willingness to invest, engage, support each other, support the entire state, not just a city or a region, will put us in fabulous shape. This is our time, and it's great to be able to say that, because it wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
Yep, we earned
Well,
it.
that is a great way to end. Let's thank Steve and Doug and Stephen and George. And thanks OBRT. Thank you, everyone.